Okay, so you're back for more, huh? It seems like you really want to get to the bottom of things. That's what we're all about here. Digging deep. Today, well, let's just say we're tackling a pretty big one. Someone who, well, pretty much changed how a whole lot of people see the world. We're talking about Gautama Buddha.
That's right. We've been poring over all these texts,
Hmm.
tracing his journey, how he went from, well, basically a prince living the good life to, the Buddha, founder of Buddhism.
Mm.
It's quite a story. And we've pulled out all the essential stuff here, the core teachings and insights, all that.
Exactly. So we're giving you the concentrated version, right? All the good stuff, the aha moments, but without getting lost in all the little details. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's get started. First things first, who was this guy? Where did it all begin?
Well, he started out as Siddhartha Gautama, born way back, like 6th century BCE, in a place called Lumbini, which is in Nepal now. And get this, he was royalty, a prince, son of King Suddhodana and Queen Maya. Talk about being born with a silver spoon, right?
Unimaginable luxury, right? I mean, everything handed to him, every whim, every desire instantly fulfilled. I mean, wow. The sources really emphasize how much his father wanted to shield him from any kind of hardship or suffering. He basically built this perfect little world inside the palace walls, this bubble.
Yeah, but, life has a way of, well, life happens, right? You can't hide from it forever. And even though Siddhartha had all this luxury, it seems like he started feeling, I don't know, maybe restless or, curious about what was outside those walls.
It's almost like he sensed there was something more, something he was missing, right? And then boom, those glimpses beyond the palace, those changed everything. I mean, they really set him on a whole new path. And, well, the rest, as they say, is history.
Totally. There are these 4 encounters, these pivotal moments that really stand out, these really ordinary things that most of us, well, we see them all the time, right?
Mhm.
An old man, someone sick, a dead body, and then an ascetic. I mean, just imagine seeing all of that for the first time. It must have been a total shock to his system.
Yeah, like a slap in the face,
Mm.
right? I mean, here he is living in this bubble of perfection, and suddenly there's aging, sickness, death, the whole, the nitty-gritty of human existence.
Right.
And then to top it off, he sees this ascetic, this person who's renounced everything, chosen this totally different way of life, all about seeking something beyond, the material world. That contrast, wow, it must have been mind-blowing.
It was a turning point, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It really ignited this whole quest for him. Siddhartha, I mean, he decided to give up everything, all the privilege, all the comfort. Think about it. He leaves his palace, his wife, his newborn son, all to go on this journey, searching for truth, for understanding. It's a pretty big deal.
It's huge. Talk about taking a leap of faith. He basically steps into the unknown. And so he wanders, right? He meets all these different spiritual teachers, tries out all sorts of things, and then there's this period of intense asceticism. I mean, we're talking 6 years of hardcore practices like fasting, meditating, pushing himself to the absolute limit, physically and mentally.
And here's the thing. What's really important to understand is that he realized after all that, that neither extreme was the answer. Not the life of total indulgence, but also not this extreme self-denial. It's all about balance.
Yeah.
Right. And that becomes like a fundamental part of his teachings.
Yeah, the middle path, right. Finding that sweet spot, that middle ground between, overindulging and depriving yourself makes sense, right? When you've experienced both extremes, you realize the answer's somewhere in between. So, okay, he's been searching, questioning, pushing himself, and then we get to this monumental moment.
The enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. It's in Bodh Gaya, this place, and it's where Siddhartha, he becomes the Buddha, the enlightened one. And it's there, sitting under that tree, that he realizes the 4 noble truths, the foundation of, pretty much everything he teaches.
The 4 noble truths. Okay, this is big, really important stuff to get. So let's break it down, make sure we're all on the same page here. The first one, it's about suffering. It says that life is full of suffering. Now, I know that might sound kind of, I don't know, depressing or something, but it's really just being honest, recognizing that there are challenges, disappointments, pain. It's all part of the deal, right?
Yeah.
And it's not about being negative. It's about seeing things clearly for how they are.
Exactly. It's not saying that life is only misery. It's more about acknowledging that things change, nothing stays the same, and yeah, there's going to be some pain along the way. Even good things, they don't last forever, and that can be hard. That can cause suffering. The second truth, it gets to the root of the problem, and it says that the suffering, it comes from our desires, from our attachments.
Oh, I see. Like wanting things to be a certain way, clinging to things that, well, that we can't hold on to forever, right? Like think about, I don't know, how badly you wanted that new phone or, the fear of losing someone you love. It's that wanting, that clinging that causes so much anxiety, so much disappointment.
Right. Like the more we attach to things, to outcomes, to people, the more we suffer when things don't go our way, when things change. So then the third truth, this is where things start to get a little brighter because it says that we can overcome suffering.
By letting go of all that wanting and clinging. Right.
Exactly. And that brings us to the fourth noble truth, which is like the how-to guide. It gives us the path, the way to actually get there, and that's the Eightfold Path.
Okay, so after all this, after this incredible enlightenment experience, what does the Buddha do? He doesn't just like keep it all to himself, right?
Nope. He starts teaching, sharing what he's discovered. And his first sermon, it's a pretty big deal. It's called the Dharmachakra Pravartana, which basically means turning of the wheel of Dharma the moment he starts spreading his teachings.
And what are like the big themes that emerge? I mean, what's at the core of it all?
Compassion, definitely, and mindfulness, and nonviolence. And of course, he talks about liberation, about nirvana, and how it's possible to achieve that through, living ethically, meditating, and cultivating wisdom. And the really cool thing is, it wasn't just for a select few, it was for everyone.
Yeah, people from all walks of life, right? Kings, merchants, regular people, they were all drawn to his teachings. And that makes sense because, I mean, who doesn't want to find a way to live a more peaceful, meaningful life? So you mentioned the Eightfold Path, the practical guide, but it's not just about following a bunch of rules, right?
No, it's more like a framework for living, a way to cultivate a more balanced and mindful way of being. It's got all these different aspects that, well, they're all connected.
Yeah. So walk us through it. Break it down for us.
Okay, so it starts with right understanding. That means like really grasping those four noble truths we just talked about. And there's right thought, which is all about cultivating, positive, compassionate thoughts.
Okay, so that's the inner work, right? But then it also extends outward to how we interact with the world.
Right. So then we've got right speech, which is, speaking truthfully, kindly, avoiding harmful language.
Right.
And then there's right action, behaving ethically, not doing things that cause harm.
And it even goes into how we make a living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right livelihood. It's about earning a living in a way that doesn't exploit others or harm the environment. And then there's right effort, which is about, putting in the work to develop positive qualities and, work on those negative tendencies.
Okay, so we've got right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and what else?
Right mindfulness, which is like paying attention to the present moment, observing your thoughts and feelings without judging them, just being aware.
Oh, right. Mindfulness. It's a big one these days, right? And finally,
And last but not least, right concentration. This is about, developing focus, practicing meditation.
wow, that's quite a path. So it sounds like the Buddha's teachings were pretty different from, the other traditions around at the time.
Yeah, that's a key point. Buddhism, it didn't emphasize those elaborate rituals or the caste system, which was like this rigid social hierarchy. It was much more accessible, open to everyone, regardless of their background.
And to make sure these teachings, continued on, the Buddha established the Sangha. I mean, that community of monks and nuns, they were essential, right?
Absolutely. They became the keepers of the teachings, the ones who would pass them on to future generations. I mean, think about it. Without them, Buddhism might not have survived and spread the way it did.
And spread it did, right. It went all over Asia to Sri Lanka, China, Japan, Tibet, Southeast Asia. It's incredible how far-reaching it became.
And another remarkable thing is, even with all that influence, the Buddha himself, he remained humble, lived a simple life.
Yeah, he wasn't about, power or prestige. It was all about the teachings, about helping people find their own path. And he really encouraged people to, think for themselves, right? Not just blindly follow what he said, but use their own judgment, their own experience.
Exactly. It's about personal understanding, about ethical living, about inner transformation, not just blind faith.
And then after, decades of teaching, he passes away at the age of 80 in Kushinagar.
And that passing, it's not just death. It's called Mahaparinirvana. For an enlightened being, it means the end of the cycle of rebirth.
And even his last words, they were like this final teaching, this reminder.
They were. He said, all conditioned things are impermanent. Strive diligently for your liberation. It's like a perfect summation of his whole message. It's about recognizing that everything changes, nothing lasts forever, and that we should, focus on our own inner freedom.
Okay, so big picture. What do we take away from all this? What's the lasting impact of the Buddha and his teachings?
His message, it's still relevant today, maybe even more so. I mean, he was this guy who, faced the same human struggles we all face. And through his journey, he found these profound insights that are, well, they're timeless.
So peace, compassion, self-awareness, those are still things we're all striving for, right?
Absolutely. And the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, it's like this practical roadmap to navigating life, to finding inner peace.
So just to recap, for everyone listening, we've gone from Siddhartha, the prince, to the Buddha, the enlightened teacher. We've explored the Four Noble Truths, and we've walked through the steps of the Eightfold Path. It's quite a journey.
And this brings us to, well, a final thought for you to consider. In this world we live in now, with all the information overload, all the pressure to, achieve and be successful, how can those core principles, those ideas of the middle path, of balance and of personal understanding, how can they help us find meaning and maybe even some peace in all the chaos? It's something to think about.
Definitely food for thought.
It is.